Yeah, did you send it in the Discord chat or? Oh yeah, you all right? So let me go to my email. Hang on. Yeah, did you send it in the Discord chat or? Oh yeah, all right. Go to my email. Hang on. XavierCR92 @gmail.com. XavierCR92 @gmail.com. Right now. All right. I see it. All right, so I'm in the live chat. Yeah, we're live on YouTube. I'm looking at the YouTube live right now. All right. I see it. All right, so I'm in the live chat. What, my audio? Yeah, we're live on YouTube. Here, let me see. Let me try to connect my headphones real quick. Let me see if maybe that'll fix the issue. 1 second. What, my audio? Here, let me try to connect my headphones real quick. Let me see if yeah, that'll fix the issue. 1 second. You say it doesn't have any audio? How does it sound on my side now? I just connected my headphones. Feels good? All right, cool. Cool, cool, cool. All right, how do I do that? How, well, right now, hang on. Did you? Because I'm just watching it straight from the YouTube app right now. So, is there like a live chat share? Yeah, I'm not seeing how to mute it. Should I try it on a browser? Like, should I try to copy the link into like Safari or Chrome or something? 'Cause, yeah, like when I hop on Discord, got I got the option to mute and everything, but Yeah, like right now, like on like when I'm on the live, like I don't hear anything. Yeah, no, I don't. Right now it's silent. Got it. Okay. Oh, I'm starting to hear music. Yeah.
A new dread is rising on Skyline City. Visualizers gotta walk together, but who will answer the calling? Would it be abstract and geometric, genetics, monochrome, and vanisher to save the world? Welcome to the world of the Black Book, Black Book, Black Book. Welcome to the world of the Black Book, Black Book, Black Book. Welcome to the world of the Black Book, Black Book, Black Book. Welcome to the world of the Black Book, Black Book, Black Book. The school of Alcazar is stolen and it run and in the wrong hands. Unlucky and forgotten evil, and the venomous ruler of the black ink must be stopped. Cussing us, Chronos, the bookkeeper, must lend an helping hand to the visualizer. The time has come for us to paint the wall again for brighter days. Welcome to the world of the Black Book, Black Book, Black Book.
Man, let me go back to the live. 1 second. Yeah, I do. For sure.
Welcome to the world of the Black Book, Black Book, Black Book.
Yes, sir. Are we up?
Visualize a better tomorrow. Dynamic action is needed. Erase the boss and
Yeah. All right, so we are going to home. All right. Let's transition over. Let's keep it in this view. I think we should be able to start. I don't know if Ozzy was able to fix it, what he was fixing with the microphone, but I don't think we were able to pull audio on his side. But I guess we're gonna just start eventually, right? So for what it's worth, let's just get this this show on the road. So without further ado, we're gonna get this show started. So I need you guys to start viewing the actual chat. And you guys will be my eyes and ears. If anybody asks questions or something, there's a whole bunch of hellos and what's up and what's going on. I'm also gonna open up the Instagram so I could actually see the actual live. I'll have to switch over accounts. Sorry, guys. There's a whole bunch of housekeeping stuff that we need to do here. To make sure that we're covering all grounds here. I see Anthony's on. It's not letting me join into my other account for some reason. It's not playing nice. Okay. That's that. We'll go here. We should be able to see live on my phone. This guy right here. Yep. Awesome. This guy right here. I'm going to say thank you for those who are on the chat. That. All right, I see Stoop. See everybody's in here, man. Thank you guys for having the patience on giving us the time to actually roll out all the things that we want to roll out tonight. As you could tell, it is our first kind of live, so we're figuring it out as we speak. We're figuring it out. So I'm opening up a whole bunch of files that I have here, and I promise that it's gonna be a lot smoother and a lot faster and a lot less buggy. But there is a couple of things that I want to make sure that we're covering while we do these lives. So text files, we're gonna go to this little bad boy right here, and we're gonna zoom in right here. All right, here we go. We're ready. Ozzy, this is the last call. Did you get any luck with the mic? 1 2 1 2. I don't think Ozzy has mic. I think his mic is down, so I'm gonna have to freestyle it here. Xavier, are you good with your mic? Are you good with your camera? Yeah, I could hear you. So I could hear you. I'm not showing you yet to the audience. I'm addressing those of you that are signing in through Instagram. We're gonna have to play some magical camera trickery here because I could hear my guests that are on the show, which is Xavier, which I'm gonna introduce him in a minute. Again, this is the pilot show, so we're trying to go live on Instagram and on YouTube. So I have cameras here, which is kind of the Instagram live. I have another camera up here, which is the YouTube live. And then I have a live Discord chat through the screens, which is how I'm getting the rest of the team on the live. So again, for Ozzy and Xavier, which are my co-hosts for tonight, please make sure that you guys are lowering your audio feed from whatever other sources that you're getting it from. So try to isolate the audio that you're receiving either through the Discord if you're hearing it through the Discord, but definitely not through the Instagram and the YouTube at the same time. All right, so that's kind of level setting in terms of technical challenges that we're facing as we're going live. For those of you that are on the actual YouTube link and watching it through YouTube, you're gonna be able to see video footage that we're gonna be sharing. You're gonna be seeing images that we're gonna be sharing, and then audio and visuals of the guest speakers that are gonna be through the technology of Discord. So you're gonna be able to only see me and hear me live here as feedback of what's going on. So if you guys want to take a minute or two to see if you could find those on the YouTube link, I don't know if Xavier or Ozzy, you could put it on the chat, the link that I send you guys, so they could jump into the YouTube live if they'd rather watch it there. So I'm gonna give that another minute or so. But having said that, this was a long setup time, but again, it is our first show. So for those of you that are on the YouTube channel, I'm gonna play our official intro to the show, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's been a long time coming, so this is basically how we're kicking off episode 1. Let's try to do some official intro to the show. So if we go here and we go. Back to our landing home screen, and before we get started with some of the content that we're going to be covering today, we are in desperate need of having some corporate disclaimers in terms of rules and regulations for the show. I think it cannot be a show until you have official warnings all over the place and some ground rules. So before we go down that way, I just want to say hello and welcome to the High Five Studios live stream. You're watching the official episode 1, basically 001. Welcome to the High Five universe. I am Ramon Campos, founder of High Five Studios and creator of the comic book titled Black Book. Today we have our first official co-host, which is Oswaldo and Xavier. Oswaldo was having some difficulties with his microphone, so you're gonna be able to see him, but perhaps you might not be able to hear him. So let me switch it over so Xavier could say hello and what's up to the rest of the crew. Xavier.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so for everybody watching, hello. My name is Xavier. And, like Ramon said, High Five Studios, our intro, and it's really excited to be here, really excited to talk comics and really get into it.
Yeah, so one of the things, the hint that I put out there on the poster that I posted on Instagram a little while ago was it was kind of bombarded with San Diego Comic-Con wallpaper. I think that being in the entertainment side of things, there's a lot to cover there. I think we should do probably next week a deep dive on just San Diego Comic-Con, the announcements that were revealed, trailers that were shown, milestones that were created. So I definitely want to take some time, hopefully next week, to like really deep dive on everything that is happening and that had happened at last week's San Diego Comic Con, and also prepare ourselves for the upcoming New York Comic Con. So we have a lot to cover. We have a lot to talk about. I think that before we watch any videos or any images, or we share anything else that we want to share, we also want to talk about the rules of the show that I was mentioning earlier. So, from a content intention standpoint, the content provided in this live stream is intended for informational, educational, and/or entertainment purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and by my guests and participants do not necessarily reflect the views of High Five Studios LLC as a whole. From an age restriction standpoint, this live stream may not be suitable for all age groups. Viewer discretion is advised, and parental guidance is recommended for younger audiences, as some topics may be of mature nature. And lastly, from a respectful conduct standpoint, we encourage a respectful and inclusive environment for all participants. Any form of hate speech, harassment, bullying, or offensive behavior towards others will not be tolerated and may result in immediate removal from this live stream. Having said that, I think that covers some necessary ground rules, especially in the environment that we're in, which everything is live, and we just have to be careful what we say to each other. The first segment that I wanted to cover with you, Xavier, if you're ready for it, I definitely I'm gonna be throwing a whole bunch of curveballs at you. I want to hear your feedback and reaction to some of it. And the way that I wanted to structure the show was by different segments. One of the segments that I want to allow you to drive a little bit is kind of like reader's pick, and what better way to kick that segment off than to cover classics, right? I think classics is a big category that there's no better ideal way to start the discussion and the conversation than deep diving on classics that are worth mentioning. Before we go there, one of the first segments that I wanted to share with you and the team is a segment that I'm calling locations, and basically locations that you must check out or take the time and visit. The majority of them will be New York based, as I am a New York local artist. So with further ado, let's get that section started. All right, Xavier, were you able to see that video?
Yes, sir.
What do you thought about
Yeah,
that
no, that
pick?
was fire though. I mean, I like the tourist attraction. Definitely, Bryant Park is. I mean, like you said, like if you live in New York, it's like one of the quintessential spots to go to. You know, it's like just one of those areas. It's just kind of a no brainer. But I didn't even know that they had that going on though. That's amazing, especially for people who are big into just traversing and kind of exploring new things and
Yeah,
just
to
being able to
add to
enjoy
that,
themselves.
when I went there, I mean the coolest thing that I've ever done at Bryant's Park is the movie night screenings when they do them over the summer. So I just wanted to highlight that for the show and for the New York locals. And again, I'm gonna be doing spotting a location. Every time we go live, I know there's a whole bunch of comic book shops that we're gonna be covering. Even when we met, we walked around a whole bunch of spots, even like Book Off and all that other stuff. So I will be showing other spots that I think are super inspirational for the creative mind, and especially just if you're in the middle of the city and you want to unplug for a little bit. I was just shocked because as I was gathering information to put it on the video, Bryant Park offers a plethora of events. So like the whole movie screening is only one of multiple things that they do over the summer. Like you saw in the video, they have like outdoor yoga, they have like classes for boxing, they have like even like a reading review type of like a book review session with local authors and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on there that I think is worth checking out, especially now that it's like it's still warm outside and you want to be doing some outdoors events. Okay, so that covers our first segment. Maybe our second segment would be um, books that inspired us. What about that? You wanna get that one started? I
Yeah,
know,
for
I know
sure.
you gave me homework and you said you were gonna talk a little bit about one of your favorites. So, um, you know, let's get it started. What do you want to talk about? What book kind of is a landmark for you?
Yes, sir. So, the book that I actually want to talk about today, speaking of like quintessential, uh, things, especially within the comic book medium, I want to talk about this classic right here. I don't know if you guys can see, but Watchmen, one of the greatest comic books of all time. You know, undeniably one of the greatest comic books of all time. Um, I definitely feel like Watchmen when it came out was just a game changer in terms of like what it did for the medium and just superhero stories in general, you know. Especially coming out in the 80s, there was a lot of anxiety around like, you know, is the United States going to get into war? Is there going to be like a whole third world war? Like what's our standing just, globally, it was very kind of shaky at the time. And I feel like this book definitely captures the essence of like the kind of paranoia and like almost like dystopian feel of the time. Um, the way in which I see it, like the characters are just so well written, and in terms of Alan Moore's writing style, I feel like we prior to Watchmen had never really seen a deconstruction of superhero stories like that. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, I completely agree.
Um, at least in regards to, yeah, like like I'll just speak on let's take Doctor Manhattan for example. He's one of the main characters. Like everybody knows who Doctor Manhattan is. Even if you haven't read Watchmen, you've definitely seen memes with just the blue naked guy, you know. But Doctor Manhattan obviously is more than that. I feel like to give you a quick compare and contrast, because DC actually recently they did Doomsday Clock where they kind of had like a sequel where they brought the Watchmen into the main DC universe for an event, right? And it kind of is interesting because they displayed the different depiction, I guess you could say, of like what godhood would look like, if that makes sense, like
Mm-hmm.
within the frame of superhero storytelling. And so what I mean by that is like obviously everybody knows Superman, everybody knows how he's kind of like the boy in blue, the Boy Scout in blue. He's always gonna be there to save the day. He always has a little smile. Always gonna look out for the little guy, right?
Yeah.
And I just think that in terms of Dr. Manhattan, on the other hand, we've never necessarily seen a character who essentially was able to achieve like omnipotence that had the characteristics of Dr. Manhattan. I felt like just the way in which they tackled, because obviously he starts out as a human. He's a scientist named John, and then experiment gone wrong, like a lot of other superhero origin stories, but they kind of flip it on his head because once he gains his powers, the thing is, uh to go back to Superman, like when Superman powers, or rather, he became more human. And in contrast, Dr. Manhattan, when he gained his powers, he kind of starts to lose his humanity. And that's a major point of the story. Like as events kind of unfold and you see him interacting with different characters, like such as his love interest, such as Night Owl, you kind of see how he still retains some of those elements of being a scientist and being curious about the world, but rather than being from the lens of like, okay, how can I discover something that will change the world? It's more so now he sees humans as kind of like experiments. Like he even says at one point, in like the final showdown, like he said, like the smartest human for me is like no greater than like the smartest ant or something along the lines of that. Something to
Yeah, I remember
that.
that.
And so I just think that, yeah, so I just think that even with uh just if you just wanted to look at him alone, like we could spend like an hour just talking about him alone. But I just wanted to touch on like first and foremost some of the main cast, just because I feel like they're a great there are a lot of parallels between them and obviously very notable superheroes that have like ongoing storylines, like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, etc. But even with kind of shifting gears to like the comedian, right? So the comedian, my best way to kind of describe him, he's like the very twisted version of like Captain America,
Yeah.
right? And the reason why I say that is obviously like, like I said, like there was in Watchmen, obviously it was created in the 80s, so there was a lot of anxieties around war and real life in our world going on. But in the context of the storyline, there is a World War III. You know, a lot of the Watchmen prior to essentially forming the group, they were the Minutemen, and they helped the government to essentially end the war, especially Dr. Manhattan. But the comedian, he's very interesting because like the book does not shy away from showing you what a terrible guy he is, the atrocities that he's willing to commit under the guise of being a patriot, and definitely a little bit more of like a cynical view on the typical, you know, American patriotism that people could expect to find in like a Captain America story per se. But it's very interesting. Like he actually is the catalyst, or he's part of the catalyst that ends up bringing Dr. Manhattan back, because as the story progresses, Dr. Manhattan essentially exiles himself. I don't want to give away the whole story, but he ends up exiling himself due to like some personal issues, and essentially he just feels like he can't connect with humans anymore. He feels like he's at a point where he just isn't human. He doesn't relate to their plights, their problems, and you just see that everywhere. But there's a certain character arc with the comedian where he does something terrible to another character within the story, and I won't reveal necessarily what that is, but he does something terrible to one of the other characters, and in spite of that, um, the other character in question still has love for him. Like she still is very much so in love with him, right? And that juxtaposition of wow, like humans can do terrible things to each other, but still find it in their hearts to have that love and have that forgiveness and have that compassion. Like that's essentially what ends up bringing Dr. Manhattan back and makes him start to care about humanity again, and starts to kind of remind him that, you know, no, I can still feel emotion. It's just I've been becoming detached, but that doesn't mean that I have to live in that. Like I can choose to come back, and I still do have uh things that I want to experience amongst, just regular humans.
Yeah,
And
I think like when you look at the whole story arc, right, of the franchise of or the world that was created or was introduced here, every time that you look at a classic, right, specifically when we're talking about something like Watchmen, you have to take in consideration the times, right? In today's world, I feel like there wouldn't be no The Boys, there wouldn't be no Invincible, there wouldn't be no. There's a whole bunch of like stories that kind of definitely were heavily influenced about what this book is about, and if we start like funneling the complexities of these books, because the book is dense. It's a very dense book. If you start funneling it down, I think it's definitely the deconstruction of what would be the dynamic between us and people that might have any kind of superpower, right? Like, what would the world look
right,
like
sure,
if Superman was here, if Superman was real and he was interacting among us? More than likely, one of the superpowers, if not the U.S., Russia, or China, would try to have some sort of alliance with something of that magnitude. And if it does have that alliance and the support of that individual, what does that world look like? So I think like for the first time, there's this story arc that really grounds us to reality. Cause and effect. If you blow up a building, what happens? Like, it's not just magical fights of like, hey, let's just have like a massive powwow and let's just break things around. There's definitely action and reaction to this world, and the dynamic that they have within each other affects everything around them. So I think that was one of my biggest takeaway when I read it. It was like, man, I haven't read a piece of storytelling specifically based around superheroes that grounds them so well, and it gives you so much depth, in each of the characters. So that was very impressive to me. And if you covered a lot of ground when it comes to storytelling, but from art standpoint, dude, just from like a technical aspect of it,
oh, it's beautiful.
yeah, I just wanted to show excerpts of basically the last act, and I'm just gonna say New York City, because that kind of um, says a lot about that last act. You have zero context to it, so it won't necessarily be a spoiler, but just the level of art that was done in this book on each page, and the execution of like the color palette, the execution of renders. Like, this is a book that even if you don't read it, it's just a beautiful book to collect from a visual standpoint. Is that well crafted? And then on the back end of it, I love the fact that they touch base that every single element of the story was crafted. So what I mean with that is like, there's a diary, there is a letters that are being sent back and forth between characters. There's memos. There's like comments behind photograph. So that's almost like secondary and tertiary storytelling, and a lot of that stuff exists within the world of Watchmen. So, if there's a letter on the table, you know, you could find out kind of what that was. If there's a photo that has some notes on it, that might mean something. So on the back end of the book, it covers a lot of that extra content, which I found it super submersive.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful book just from an artistic standpoint, like you said. Like, there's actually even just in that, I remember, I didn't realize it. I Back in college, I took this class actually on comics, and we were studying Watchmen as one of the books under the curriculum. And I didn't realize it until I had reread it for that class. But there's actually even just an issue within Watchmen, which, by the way, Watchmen itself is not like a long, super long series. The impressive thing about it, for as influential and just genuinely masterful of work it is, it's only 12 issues, right? But in one of the issues, though, the whole book, it like mirrors each other. Like, the whole sequence of events like mirrors each other. Like, there'll be a fight at the beginning of the story, And if you flip to the end of the story, like there's like another fight happening, and it's like the color palettes like are totally contrasting to kind of display different emotions. Like I remember there was a scene where two of the main characters, I think, is it Spectra? I think Spectra was the name of the woman in the
Yeah.
story, correct? And Night Owl, they essentially like get into this brawl in like an alleyway because they just end up getting harassed by like this group of thugs, right? And like if you flip ahead, like there's literally like another fight going down at like the towards the end of the story that like mirrors it. So it's super interesting. Like Watchmen has so many different elements that if you're not paying close attention, you might end up missing it. And I like how you touched on uh the diary aspect of it as well, because I feel like a big portion of the story as well, there's a good argument to be made. I mean, you can argue who the main character is because I feel like they all at different points in the story kind of shine. Like they all have their different moments of shine, which is really amazing. But I would argue that Rorschach is probably the main character of the story, just because we kind of start off from his perspective, and like you said, like the diary is like his whole thing. Like he has these different logs, kind of detailing his thoughts. And earlier I was referring to kind of like the cynicism, like the underlying tone of cynicism that's kind of present throughout, and you definitely get a lot of that from Rorschach's perspective. Like the story starts out, and you already know it's not going to be a typical superhero story just based off of like Rorschach. Even at the beginning, like he's investigating a murder, and he's just thinking about like the city that he's living in and how it's like become super depraved. And he's talking about how there are like hookers on the streets, and just people are doing drugs, and crime is running rampant. And essentially it's like very just dystopian the way he's thinking about everything. But he's like, there's gonna come a point where like all of this lust and all this bloodshed, like it's gonna pile up, and people are gonna look up for a savior. And he was like, I'll look down and just simply just say no. And I feel like that's a really great moment. And that happens towards the beginning of the story that kind of encapsulates the essence of this story, because it's not the traditional,
So
superhero tale.
so I see Ozzy is blowing up the chat on the side. He said Alan Moore writing is phenomenal. You really get a great connection with all the characters and the storyline. Um, I think it sucks that his mic is not working. I think this is one of his favorites also as well. So we definitely got to do a part two. I don't want to cover everything because I want to hear his perspective on it. And I know that
For sure.
he's probably pissed at the both of us that we're covering this particular story arc right now. So we're gonna hold off the second part of the discussion for when he's able to join us and cover Watchmen on a episode 2 deep dive.
Yeah, that'd
Any
be amazing.
yeah, he's laughing on the chat. So
Yeah,
anything
it
else
deserves its own.
you wanna cover for Watchmen, really kind of top level, or key takeaways from how it impacted you after you read it? Like, what was one of the things that at least is stuck to you after you read Watchmen that still influences in your writing today?
Without and it's so crazy because like you said, like Watchmen, it's one of those things where it deserves its own episode just for a deep dive, like just focus solely on the story, right? But I'll say that what really surprised me was how subversive it was, and what really influenced me was it made me realize like the one thing about every superhero story, right? Or every like modern superhero story, or most modern superhero stories, I should say, um, you expect there to be a happy ending. Or you at least expect it to be an ending where the hero wins, even if there's some sort of sacrifice, right? Um, Not going to say the ending of Watchmen, but I will just say, like, this story kind of made me realize that there are ways in which you can tell a superhero story. There are ways in which you can relay certain messages about the world around us. And sometimes, unfortunately, those messages might not be the most positive. It might be a little bit of a bleaker outlook. But sometimes, though, just the rawness of it, like the reality of not everything always going according to plan or not going the way that we want, like that's super important. While it's unfortunate, it's a part of life. There isn't always a happy ending, even if the characters are good, even if the characters are out trying to save everybody, you know? And so I would definitely say it was subversive in terms of the way in which it handles superheroes just dealing with conflict, and even just the resolution of conflict, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think there's so much to talk about Watchmen, and it still resonates today. One of the reasons why I felt that it was ideal to put this particular story arc in the live today, because like I mentioned, I wanted to also cover things that are happening and had happened at the San Diego Comic Con event this year, and I know that I think they announced it, right, that they're gonna do a season 2 for the new TV series adaptation.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I think they announced like a season 2 is on the works. I have not seen season 1, but I did see
Oh, it's
like a
phenomenal.
5 or 10 minute special. That what's really cool about it is that they're adding new characters to the lore, right? Like there's the that chick that is a protagonist. I saw her with the black hood. That's a whole new
Right.
character, right?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, her name I think is Sister Midnight. I think that's her superhero or her
Mm-hmm.
vigilante name rather. Yeah, and you know what's crazy is for me personally, Watchmen's one of those stories where if they had just left it here, like I'd be perfectly fine. But I feel like the way in which they even did the TV show, and it's super surprising because once again, Watchmen is if it's not your first pick for greatest comic book of all time, it's gotta be in your top three.
Yeah,
Top five maximum.
yeah,
Top five absolute
yeah,
maximum, right? But in spite of that, though, the series actually, in my opinion, lives up to the story and definitely adds to the mythos in a meaningful way. You know, I feel like uh, they do a continuation directly from the comic because the comic book and there's also a movie adaptation. Movie adaptation, the endings differ a bit, but they decided to stick with the comic book ending, which in my mind it kind of helps me to see the show, even though it's not technically canon to the lore of Watchmen, like in the comics, in my head canon, the story serves as actually a really great continuation and like a worthy sequel to what's just an amazing storyline overall. Just a super like trailblazing, innovative story. So
yeah. No, I think that puts a button on it. I think you said it all there on that kind of descriptor. There's definitely more lessons to be learned out of Watchmen, and it's definitely like a piece of art that should be part of your catalog if you have been inspired, if you're working into the world of comics or storytelling. Period. I think it just proves testament to like properties that will always be instrumental to the times that we live in. If you read that book today, it's still as relevant as it did when it came out. So that's definitely testament that like the stories, the conflicts, and the topics that are being covered there could relate to any time period. So definitely
it might
check
be
that
even
out.
more relevant today.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
crazy part. It might be even more relevant today, which is like insane. Because to give anybody in here perspective, if I'm not mistaken, Watchmen came out in like 1986. It's
Um,
2023.
is it an 86? I have the book right here. It will say it right here.
I think it was 86
Bro.
because
Oh no. Dave Gibbons has been working in comics since '73. But let me see. It's old, dude. This is an old. To your point, it's not a new story arc. We should say it here. Oh man, I would have wondered if it would have been. It says that it's using songs from that's 1965. Oh, these are songs. It even has the songs that original color. Oh yeah, there you go. Original color version was 1986. You're right.
yes, sir.
Yep. And then it got
Yeah, I was just
digitally
looking up
remastered in
after.
2005. But yeah, 86. You were
Yeah,
spot on.
that sounds right.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
no, that sounds right.
So that covers the comic section recommendation for people to check out. I guess we're ready to go to another segment. You ready?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right,
What we
let's
got
do it.
next?
We are going to do, we did locations and recommendations that we had there. I think the next one is going to be trailers. You ready for some
Okay,
trailers?
of course,
I want
always.
to see some react.
What we talking about today?
Good day. Hey, be home by dinner.
I love you. Good morning, Mr. Fielding.
Morning, Catherine.
Yeah, I can hear it.
And here are your daughters, Angela and Catherine. It's about 7 hours ago, and that's the last information we have.
Catherine!
Not at
Angela?
all.
If
This is
you
my
can hear
yeah.
this,
I
we
can't
love
even
you.
guess
Please
honestly
come
right
home.
now, but looks interesting though.
Hey, you found her? What are you and Catherine doing out there in those woods?
We were just walking and walking. That's all I remember.
Angela, can you tell
No, I'm
Dad
intrigued. I
how
almost
long
want to
you've been
ask you, but I'm like waiting to
hours?
see if I can figure it out.
Baby, you've been gone
Yeah,
3 days.
What'd you say?
I didn't say nothing.
Thought I heard you say something.
Hey, baby. You okay?
Wherever those girls went, they brought something back with them.
The body and the blood of Jesus Christ.
Body in the blood?
Catherine.
Body in the blood. The body in the blood. The body and the blood.
Catherine!
The body and the blood. The body and the blood.
Oh no,
Have you ever seen anything like this?
she going crazy.
Me?
No, but there are people out there who have.
You have some experience with possession.
Yes, more than I'd like.
I believe you can help get our girls back.
Exorcism is a ritual. Every culture, every religion, they all use different methods. It's going to take all of them.
Wait, is this
Don't be scared.
the Exorcist?
What did you do?
Is that Catherine's heartbeat?
They're beating in sync.
Played a trick on you.
Okay, yeah, the music kind of, and the actress, the I don't know the lady with the white hair's name, but that was like, okay, is this? She's not. It's not Halloween, but The Exorcist. Okay, okay.
What do you think about it? Is
I've
it
actually
gonna
been
be
getting
a
dig into
watch
the.
or a pass?
For me, it'll probably end up being a watch. Like for horror movies, I'm gonna say I've only recently gotten into them probably in the last like year and a half because like a lot of my friends are like they're big like horror movie buffs, and for me like I've been like I watched what was it? I think I've seen like all the Scream movies at this point. I've definitely seen a couple of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, like some of the classics. But I actually, funnily enough, have never seen The Exorcist, but I'm interested because I know that this like this is like a sequel to the movie that came out like decades ago, right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
like a direct
correct.
sequel to that.
Yeah, I think it's a
Yeah.
big
So,
anniversary. I don't know if it's 40 years or 50 years or what have you.
oh shoot, oh they're not playing. Okay, so
Hmm.
yeah, no, I definitely feel like at least in that aspect, because for horror movies nowadays, it's either one or two things. Like it's either they're a big hit, like they're doing something just different or crazy, or they kind of fall into that trap of being like just a jump scare fest. And based off the trailer, I'm interested. Based off the trailer intrigued me enough that I kind of want to go and see it for myself. And even if it's like a jump scare fest, at least I can say that I've seen the Exorcist. I can say that you know this is obviously they're planning something big for the anniversary, and that's something that I would hope that the creators have put some time and thought and effort into. I really like stories like horror stories where it's not just the like the killer slash ghost slash whatever entity is the villain. Like they're not just doing it randomly. Like I like there to be some type of link between like the antagonist and the protagonist, whether that's like I don't know, a family member gets possessed, or just like maybe the killer is a member of the family or something like that. Like I like those types of like personal connections. It just makes it seem a little bit more personal. I feel like within horror narratives, like sometimes what can get lost is that element of okay, this is happening because of this event, and this is how everything kind of ties in together. Like, not to say that the movies where like the slashers are just out slashing people are bad per se, but just from my own personal taste, like I like a narrative where it's like, okay, there's something personal, like the stakes feel a little bit more familiar, and so definitely I would go to see that in a heartbeat for sure.
Yeah. Anthony, you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I could hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly, dude.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to put on your camera, but I just wanted to get your initial feedback on that trailer.
I can.
You watching it or not?
I did. Can you see me?
Yeah, no, clearly, dude. No, I'm saying, are you gonna watch it?
First of all, I just want to say, what's going on, guys?
How we doing? How we doing?
Good. Yeah, I watched the trailer. I was able to watch the trailer, man. It caught me by surprise. I didn't know they were making another one.
Yeah, coming in hot.
It was a good. I'm a fan. I mean, I think The Exorcist is, the movie, that started it all, man.
Yeah, what I mean, that the timeline when this film came out, it was like perfectly ideal for like screwing our skulls up because we were like kids at the time. You know what I mean? It had that mysticism. Like this is for context of the young kids that are 20 right now and stuff like that. When we were kids, you had to like borrow your uncle's VHS, you know what I mean, and watch it at your friend's house. So this is like a myth. This is like myth movies,
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is that you always try to raise the bar, right? Like, you saw The Exorcist many years ago, right? And that was like really, really scary. But, over the years they tried to top it, and then people are, in a way, they don't get scared the way they used to get scared, Seeing someone walking backwards, it was a big deal in terms of special effects. Now, they have, the roof, is blown off,
Yeah.
Mirrors, things are coming out of the mirrors and stuff, but back in the days, The Exorcist was the movie,
Yeah, it was definitely like a benchmark film for special effects at the time. And to
Yeah.
your point, I think like the key word there is like a word that I want to throw in there is like desensitized to the horror. And I think
Yeah.
that's what I liked about the beginning of the trailer specifically, that for the first minute or so we're getting to meet this family that had basically a missing family member, and we don't know what happened in that time. You know what I mean? What kind of things were going on in the woods, and I think that brings that heavy element of surprise and horror, the suspense of like not knowing, less is more. Like the things that you're not seeing were a little bit more creepy for me, and I hope that they tap a lot more into that than, to your point, blowing rooftops and breaking glass. Like we've seen that a lot. What are the suspense elements that you could bring me that could keep me on the edge? And I think they did that at the beginning of the trailer very well.
Yeah.
I wonder, so
Looks
that
good.
yeah, so that woman, that's the mother or the child? The old lady with the white hair. That's the
Honestly,
mother?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see the whole trailer from the beginning. I was actually trying to log in.
Yeah.
I saw like like I didn't see the whole thing.
Yeah.
I had to rewatch it.
So I have one more trailer that I wanted to like run by the team, but I guess what I could do is like stop it and play it and not run it through. I think that's probably why they dinged us. I think that's what we can do, and that's when you see those reaction videos that the people pause it and react to it. I think when you let it play continuously, I think that's when probably they ding us. I don't know the policy, but I mean, it's worth just trying it again and see if we can get it to play. I think when you let it play continuously, I think that's when probably they ding us. I think when you let it play continuously, I think that's when probably they ding us. I don't know the policy, but I mean, it's worth just trying it again and see if we can get it to play. if we could play it through without getting dinged again through for those of you that are watching through the Instagram, we're watching some trailers right now, and I think we just got dinged on the YouTube live for playing the trailer. But I don't know if it's the regulation of like us playing it through without interruptions or like a normal feed or something like that, or more than 30 seconds. I don't know. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pause it every like 20, 30 seconds. But I think this is a cool watch also to watch, and I'll let the trailer speak for itself.
You are in this race! Get in the fight! Yes, sir. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Oh, shut up! I'm not missing my race. Oh, I'm gonna puke. Don't pick up my dad's car. Yes, we're not going to jail! Oh, crap.
No, I didn't hear anything about this movie either, man. Yeah. I wasn't ready for this.
You think you're gonna play a stupid video game about cars and you're gonna become a race car driver? All I ever wanted to do is be a racer. I'm doing it. The 10 of you are the best Gran Turismo players in the world. Now is your chance to race real cars. This is insane.
It's not gonna work. The guys who race are elite athletes. Your kids are scrawny little gamer kids.
That's where you come in.
Okay.
I think you can do the
Based on a true
impossible.
story.
I'm here to prove that you can't.
You get tired, you get sloppy, you get hurt, and you lose races! You puked on my lawn. I know what I'm doing. I'm not afraid. I've raced this track 1,000 times in the game. Let me drive it my way.
That was actually pretty great.
We have a newcomer this year. His presence is shaking the foundation of the sport.
This is the major leagues. The other drivers, your pit crew are going to hate you.
Much easier with a joystick, isn't it?
I can't see anything!
Correct. I think it's to see if is basically it's like an equation, right? If you're good at the game, you may be good at in real life.
If I lose more than just a race. So I'm not gonna quit. You've got to prove to everyone that you belong.
That's a cool special
I've
effect.
raced it, like 1,000 times. Now you just gotta do it in real life.
Gran Turismo. Based on a
All right.
story.
Probably is a pass for me.
Xavier,
Might
where
be
you
a
at,
pass.
dude? What do you think? What do you thought about that trailer?
I'm interested definitely just to in the concept. I know, I like admittedly growing up, like I didn't play Gran Turismo, so I don't have as much of like a deep connection with it. Like obviously it's one of those franchises that's like everybody's heard of Gran Turismo. Like it's not one of those things where if you played video games you couldn't have heard of it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like one of those things like how nowadays like FIFA, Madden, like that. I kind of have Gran Turismo like a similar realm to that. This reminds me of what movie just came out with Christian Bale, like I think
Oh, you're
last
talking
year.
about the Ford
Just-
versus Ferrari.
Was it Ford?
Yeah, Ford
Yeah,
versus
like it kind
Ferrari.
of gave
Yeah,
me that feel.
Yeah.
yeah.
It kind of gave me that feel, and
I think it started touching on a whole bunch of other things that come into play, right? Like even the guy when he's at the pit stop, like yo, it's a lot easier with a joystick. Like now you're seeing environmental changes. Like when you're hitting that speed, that's physical change. It's not just learning the track or whatever or the path. It's more so like what are the physical elements that change the ability to drive that track. And I think that they're capturing that very well. Like when he says I can't see anything, like even in the video game, I'm pretty sure that you don't get that kind of like ambient occlusion that your whole path now you're going out of memory. There are things that I don't think translate
right.
one to one, but it's fascinating to take into account that it's based on true events. I think that's one of the only reasons why I'm inclining to watching it. I thought when they announced Gran Turismo, I was leaning on that fear of like, man, I hope that they don't screw it up and they're not doing it just to make a film crossover adaptation. But I think there's some story there to be told.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not far fetched, right? I mean, these games are made hyper realistic. Sometimes the crew they go to these tracks and they scan the tracks, and it's very realistic. So is it far fetched that someone had the idea and the money, the resources to gather some kids and test them, put them behind a wheel in real life and be like, okay, let me see if you could really do it, because some of these players really is a skill, and they build that skill by playing the game for many, many hours, and they know the tracks, in order to make those turns, those tight turns. And if you remember, I don't know if you guys remember that movie, Cool Runnings, where the person that was in front of the sled, basically had to maneuver and move his head, anticipate the turns and the curves. Sorry. And basically in the movie, you see him memorizing the turns.
Yeah, for the young audience that have never seen it,
Yeah.
It was the sport is bobsledding. So the film
Mm-hmm.
is based of an actual running track team in Jamaica, and they
Mm-hmm.
basically get recruited by this ex-Olympian, retired Olympian coach that realizes that one of the biggest advantages that you could get in bobsledding is the running before you jump into the bobsled. Like that could give you a tremendous advantage. Like it's a game of seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct. And so like I said, it's not far fetched,
Yeah, using an unconventional method.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a matter of skills. And some of these players, these pro players, they do have certain skills that probably could translate into the real world, right? So it's like if you have a game that has to do with mathematics and you're playing the game 10, 12 hours a day, for X amount of years.
Yeah.
What was the name?
What was the name?
In a tournament, that has to do with math, I'm pretty sure you'll do pretty good.
What was the name? What was the name of that other movie from the 80s? That he needed to like decode the rockets. Remember that? The end of the world. The young kid that he's like decoding it was like a code red. They were gonna deploy the thing. I think it was War Games. Wasn't it War Games? But he was like a gamer. He was a kid gamer. He had to crack it like a code. They brought him in. It's like sci-fi also, but I don't know. It reminded me of that too. Like back in the day. It was like an 80s classic, a cult classic.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I think it was called War Games. But yeah, that's all I had today, man. I had some, the trailers, location recommendations that I, wanted to give you guys. I think we definitely went over the hour. We're almost gonna head over to the hour and a half mark. But just putting the crew together, talking shop, bringing any topic that you guys want to cover and talk about. It's not just comics, it's not just movies, it's just anything and everything that encompasses entertainment. I think one of the segments that I want you to lead, Anthony, is probably like conspiracy theory debunking. So I'm just gonna like put some stuff, because that's what happens. The challenge that I see with social media too is that the endless scrolling. So you might be on TikTok or Instagram, you don't even know where you saw the video. So one of the things that I want to do is set up a platform or space where we could deep dive in one topic. You know what I mean? Like I remember when I showed you that just a segue here, there's this lady that became kind of sensational and on fire when she got off on the middle of the plane and she started screaming that, you know, this other passenger that she was sitting next to was non-human. I think that's the terminology that the conspiracy theory likes to call it. You know, she identified him as a non-human, and it was so hard to find the video again.
Yeah, I remember
She
that.
was like, he's not real.
He's not real. Yeah, he's not real. So. And some people do believe, you know, that perhaps he might not be real. You know.
Yeah, Xavier, what do you think, dude? Xavier, what do you think, dude? You think it was real or not?
I wasn't there.
That he was real. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you see, here's my thing, right? I like to judge whenever I see a story where somebody's like kind of going crazy and irate. I like to look at the surroundings, right? And everybody was confused as to what she was talking about. So personally, I think whoever she was referring to was real. And I'm not. Listen, I'm not one to try to put accusations on anybody, but you know, maybe this woman, maybe she wasn't in the right state of mind at that point, or maybe she might have just been sleep deprived. You know, like you know how it goes when you're packing night before, trying to get on a flight and everything. So maybe she was just sleep deprived. I don't know, or maybe I don't know if y'all saw recently. Apparently, an ex government official just confirmed that we have alien crafts like in Area 51 or whatever. So maybe she saw an alien, and maybe the alien actually disappeared, and maybe the alien went invisible just to mess with her. Everybody's looking at her like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. I actually saw the video that you're talking about. I actually saw it. I want to say about 45 minutes ago. I came across the video where the guys, he's basically said that they, military personnel saw a craft above, an air base, I believe so. He said about 100 yards. So we're talking about football field, size craft, and they don't know what it was. They really don't know. So, now the government now is that, admitted that that they do have, and they said actually that they do have bodies.
Yeah, what are they called? What do they say that we identify non-human biology? That was a technical term
correct.
Utilized.
Non-human biologics, right?
Any wording so you don't sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, think about it for a minute. Even if it's a germ, microbe from another planet, that was inside that craft.
Yeah,
that basically tells you that life. Yeah, that life could,
Yeah, it could have been, you could think of it as like, imagine it's like a venom goo or something. You know what I mean? Like a black ink or whatever. It's non-human. You know what I mean? It doesn't exist in our planet. So yeah, to your point, it could have been a whole bunch of different components. But there's two different conversations going on here. One is the example that we gave about the incident that happened on the plane. The other one is what, has the internet on fire right now, which is the congressional hearing from the testimony of this individual that is basically whistleblowing to the experiences that he had firsthand and the legitimate contacts of connections that he has that were witnessed at the time, have been exposed to these experiences that he's basically whistleblowing and are still active in those roles. So it has a lot of weight, the stuff that he was whistleblowing about. He did say that, he mentioned in multiple parts of the hearing, of the congressional hearing, that a lot of the things that he can share needs to be done in closed doors because it is sensitive matter to the government. And I think it shows that there is some complexity in whistleblowing. I think that you could still whistleblow as long as you keep certain restraints about what you say. You know what I mean? So there's some legitimacy there. I just find it fascinating that the people that he's whistleblowing to, like the government, look more amazed than we do. You know what I mean? Like they're like, can you explain it again? I'm like,
You have a good point because I think don't quote me on this because like I said, I saw the video once, so I have to watch it again. But one of the ladies was asking the guy. He said, do you know if anyone has died, because of this interaction? And his reply, he said, I wouldn't ask that question.
Yeah.
So,
really?
Yeah, no, no, it has a lot of weight. I mean, the way,
dissect it. But
yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like one of the things.
I wouldn't ask that question.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted you to do is probably start just pulling down the video so we could watch it here because it's very difficult to find one location of like, oh, did you see this snippet? Or did you see that other snippet? So we could do like a 3-minute montage of a recap of the highlights. You know what I mean? Because it's so hard to find the videos, you know what I mean? And replay them and the connection and all that stuff. So I'm going to start doing my due diligence of creating like a one-stop shop of like, all right, let's see what we have and let's try to debunk it or at least give it our 2 cents because TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all these other platforms are an excellent setup for rumor of he said, she said, and it becomes more of a rumor of what you interpreted from the video, and we're not even looking at the same context or evidence presented. So I think that's a good segment to deep dive on or try to debunk it. You know what I mean? Who is this guy? What's his background? What do we know about him? I know that Joe Rogan has spoken to that other guy that is always on the show, and he basically set it up 3 weeks ago. So about 2-3 weeks ago, the guy that showed up at Joe Rogan's show said that this guy was going to do a congressional hearing that was scheduled for today. So there's a lot of elements and parties involved in the incident in terms of like how deep this rabbit hole goes. And my first impressions without doing the deep dive is that this by far feels like the most credible source of evidence being presented if it's a congressional hearing.
For sure.
Yeah, but it's I don't know, it's kind of fishy that now the government is openly admitting that they've seen crafts, and I don't know what this is all about, man. For many years they didn't want to touch the subject, and now it seems like the Pentagon is releasing documents, and it feels weird. I don't know, for some reason.
Does that have to do with that thing that they were talking about, the years of declassification, the mandates? I think it has to do with that, the time frame. I think it's like a 50 or 75-year time frame.
Yes and no. I mean, release some documents, yeah, perhaps documents that they already have, but that doesn't mean that if they see this aircraft, UAPs they call it now, right? If they see it, they don't have to say anything unless they want to.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, Jose says that basically just like talking about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say, can I just interject real quick? I know this isn't technically like my this isn't gonna be my segment, but a theory that I have that I feel like isn't really gonna be too popular. This might be a little bit controversial. This definitely, so I wanted to touch on, I definitely think that this is probably the most credible source that we've had so far in regards to like the existence of extraterrestrial life out there. But in my humble opinion, I think that the aliens have known about us for a while, and the reason why, like, on a widespread, like, global scale, people debate whether or not extraterrestrials exist, because extraterrestrials probably don't want anything to do with us. Like, if you think about it, like, think about being an alien and like scrolling through TikTok or scrolling through Twitter, like to get like your
fix.
I guess like, yeah, like your fix of like, all right, I want to see what the humans are about. I find them to be a very interesting species, yada yada. And then you just go on Twitter. Like me as an alien, I would be upset. Like I would be so bad. I'd be like, I'm never going here. This is crazy.
The whole thing with the NPCs, right? Or non-playing character. If you guys, whoever that might not know what NPC stands for, where now people are just in front of a camera, just making a movement, up and down and acting like a character, and and basically the same thing, like you're basically controlling them. It's kind of weird, man. It's freaky.
Yeah, it's a weird time we're living in, dude. It's definitely a weird time. I think that could be a whole segment that we should talk about, like what I was telling you and sharing you those articles of like the backstory behind it, you know what I mean, the rabbit holes that it could open, you know, what we're tapping into. I think that one of the keywords that you said that puts a circle back on it is that social media and all these content, the excess of it, it starts desensitizing you to a lot of things. So, you know, you start looking into like niches, you start looking into fetishes, you start looking into like entertainment in different spaces, and the walls are falling down where like kids and adults are having access to the same kind of content. You know, walls, you know, lines are getting blurred out. So it's definitely like a weird time that we're living in, and I think that whole controllable character or NPC, or you know, non-playable character movement is starting to open up a Pandora's box, in my opinion. If you start deep diving into what it means and where it could head, you know what I mean, where it could lead to.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
1,000%.
Yeah, I agree with that statement, man.
Yeah. So I think
sometimes too much information is bad too, man.
Well, yeah,
having too much
isn't that also why the internet is going berserk? Because of the whole idea that like this is the first time that we have concrete evidence that aliens are here, and people are like not even phased by it. It's like, yo, I still gotta pay my bills. You know what I mean? Like,
literally.
Yeah, the thing is, like, just like I said before, you know, what happened is sometimes the government says they're not real. They're not real. You know, they're just aerial phenomena that you guys see, you know,
the balloons.
And people start saying, okay, it's not real. And then movies come out slowly showing aliens for the last, I want to say probably the last 30 or 40 years, right? You've seen movies like, you know, many movies that came out. So, and they always show, you know, the grays, you know, those aliens with the big eyes, you know, elongated arms, you know, limbs. But, you know, and now if you actually see one, if they actually show you one and it looks similar to that, you might say, okay, cool. For, you know, and because you've been conditioned for the past 30 years, you know, to see, you know, Star Wars, where you see different kind of aliens. And then you see Star Trek, and then you see, you know, all these sci-fi movies, right? That show you that, yeah, there might be life out there, and it becomes normal, you know. So I think it's they've been conditioning us to really slowly, you know, understand that, yeah, you may not be alone, and sometimes you may see about, you know, you might see an ET, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
Will you be scared if they show you on TV? Listen, this is how they look like. You think you may be what, like shocked, or?
I think you're gonna get that crowd.
Like, I'd be a little personally, like, I'd probably be a little bit shocked because I feel like they're gonna look different than how we envision them. But am I gonna be like, oh my goodness, like this is the craziest? Like, no, I probably wouldn't have the reaction that like people from 20, 30 years ago would have. And I think that some of that, to your point, has to do with like just media in general. I think the term is predictive programming. I think that's the term for it.
Yeah.
But essentially like showing things ahead of time, starting to introduce concepts in like a fictional context that in essence, like later on down the line, it's revealed like, hey, this concept that we were talking about that like seems super crazy and outlandish, it's not that outlandish actually. Like it's kind of close to reality. You know?
Yeah.
And we're also super weird though. Like humans are super weird to begin with. You know what I mean? Like if you go down like neighborhoods, you're gonna see some dude with like some feathers and riding a bicycle with a swimsuit in the middle of the winter. You know what I mean? Like we're just strange. We're a strange species, you know, as a whole, as a collective, you know? And again, the rabbit hole goes deep in terms of how we are going to react as a collective over an announcement like that. So when you say, you know, do you think that we're going to like panic or freak out? I do think that there are going to be a crowd of people that are going to be completely resistant to the idea of it. I think people by their nature and by default are not going to be able to separate reality and religion in terms of their belief system. So that could conflict, you know, their initial impact. Like, for example, you know, you could have science and logic say, hey, we are in a ball in space. There's another ball in space that has living species, and they're coming here. And a big portion of society is going to say, well, we're in heaven and hell is coming to get us or something. You know what I mean? Like, completely deconstruct a simple fact that, you know, it's just we're monkeys, fishes are coming. We're just interacting with a different species. You know, it could get really complex from a religious belief standpoint. So it hasn't happened yet. I mean, with all the evidence that was shown, you would have assumed that, you know, the religious figures would have been calling a regroup and reorganizing, you know, the belief system of like preparing for, you know, the end is coming or something. You know, you would have assumed that something like that would have happened already. Like, you know, come Sunday morning, you know, the bulletin has been posted that we got to stay here for 5 hour, you know, indoctrination of preparing ourselves for, you know what I mean? The calling
but
of.
slowly they have. Though. I mean, I don't know if you remember that a few years ago, the Pope, the Vatican, you know, released, you know, a letter stating that we may not be the only species in the universe. Basically, it's opening the door that if you find something out there, God also created it. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, you know, you have to prepare your followers for something like that. You have to tell them that yes, probably the Bible doesn't mention it, but if God created the universe and everything in it, you know, there's a possibility that, you know, if we encounter another society, another, you know, civilization out there, that you got to be okay with it. And if you believe in God, then you're gonna say, well, God created them also, you know. So yeah, I think some religions are gonna start saying stuff about that, you know, because it could be a, you know, it's a real thing.
Yeah, Jose said on the chat, it starts to sound very close to Secret Invasion, the Marvel show with
Yeah, but see, this is exactly what I was saying before, right? Like they'll give you little pieces to digest, you know, over time, and you become conditioned to certain things that may happen, right? Because they know that it could happen, right? So that's what I'm saying. I mean, if it's a controlled demolition, it's
yeah,
controlled.
And just for context, for those of you guys that are watching, Anthony mentioned the Greys, which is a species of type of aliens that they talk about. The actual show of Secret Invasion is it's like a side quest story arc with Nick Fury, the character, and he's basically in full contact with the reptilians, and how the story arc is basically that they've been on Earth for X amount of years. You know, we've been living amongst them, and they have seek refuge on Earth. While the story kind of takes place after the snap, after the Thanos snap, where like he bleeped for like 5 years. So during that time, Nick Fury was supposed to be the point in contact between the reptilians and the Earthlings. So since he disappeared for those 5 years, the rest of the rest of the reptilian survivors seek refuge. So at the beginning there were only a few hundred or thousands, but after the bleep and the contact with Nick Fury, since that kind of disappeared, they decided to like, oh, we're all just gonna basically move out there, you know, migrate to Earth. So I haven't seen the whole show. I think I've seen only like 3 episodes, but it is an interesting and fascinating topic, talking about the idea of the concept of preparing us, you know, that they've been here for decades. So timing could have been better for an announcement like that, and shows like this being of like normal daily topic, dude. Like it's weird. Like we're living in a time right now. It feels very similar to like the beginning of the pandemic, when the pandemic started. You know what I mean? The COVID-19 started.
Yeah.
It felt like I was playing The Division, or it felt like I was watching Walking Dead. You know what I mean? Like it was like out of a comic book. You know what I mean? Like people were like, and again, you know, you saw the interaction of some people. Some people were really going bonkers of like putting gas masks on, you know what I mean, and prepping for doomsday, and you know what I mean, and emptying out the Walmarts and the Targets and the shelves, you know, for survival equipment over a flu. You know, imagine if we're talking about a different species that, now we're gonna be able to see in the flesh. How is that survivalist gonna react? Like the one that has the pro guns and pro weapons and defend my turf. How are those people gonna react to an announcement of that caliber? That's gonna be interesting to watch.
Definitely, definitely. And just to kind of tie it all back together, like shouts out to Watchmen. I mean, Watchmen kind of, when you think about it, there's a lot of stuff that's happening today that kind of mirrors what's going on in the book. And even to your point about Secret Invasion, and it's unfortunate. Once again, I think people are going to disagree with me on this, but I gotta be honest. I think in this situation, like we'd be the scrolls. I don't think that the aliens are the scrolls personally. And like my reasoning for saying that is if we're to go with the theory that aliens have already been among us forever, quite clearly they're not from the General Zod school of we're about to take over the earth and, like trying to terraform everything, yada yada. Like if we are to believe that they've been here for this long. I mean, granted, the government is apparently just now releasing this information they've known for a while. So who knows? Maybe they are actually these crazy, like bloodthirsty beings, but I don't think so personally. I think that if there are aliens out there that they're actually, I'm not gonna say super like benevolent and just like coming here to like, save us all, but I feel like if they were from that school of like, no, we see y'all as a species and we don't like what you're doing, I think we would have known by now. I think if they were like really like aggressive, like how they are in like the movies, and like they're here to, we're your overlords, take us to your leader. I feel like we would have known about that by now. Like, it would have been.
I will put a button on the whole thing, right? And to give context and an example to what you're saying. If there's a species, dude, that is in any shape, form, or shape trying to take over, if you have the technology, first and foremost, to be able to like speed jump, if you have the ability to like move without the constraints of gravity, you know what I mean, that we've seen in videos and stuff like that, if there is a group that has that technology and is trying to take over, we would be killed, destroyed, or pulverized without us even realizing it started. You know what I mean? It's almost like you grab a pack of native Indians that has like bow and arrows and you just throw an atomic bomb. Like you don't even know what the heck happened. You know what I mean? Before you even react to like what's going on, it's over. So I think it will be the same way that even if they want to take over, it will be something like mind wipe, or you know what I mean? Like you don't even know what happened. You know what I mean? Like we're not gonna see the classic Hollywood film of like end of war and them coming in ships and lasers coming out and blowing out buildings. I think it's just gonna be as a Thanos snap, like.
Yeah, I do agree with that statement. And even if you could move an object, let's say at the speed of light, right? Like if they are actually coming here at the speed of light, right? If you could have a ship moving at, or at least close to the speed of light, let's say 98% of the speed of light, with no occupants, you just aim it to the earth. Once that ship hits the earth, it's gone. You understand what I'm saying? So to your point, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not going to be a fair fight. It's not like Independence Day where, you're going to be flying your F-18s and trying to attack the mothership. That's not going to happen. If that ship came here from another galaxy, yeah, don't even try, man. Don't even, don't argue.
It's over.
It's over. I mean,
it's a dub on humanity.
You have the technology, So yeah, it's a really interesting concept. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I guess I'm regressing. I think I wanna get to an end on this one, but I want to do a segment. Like I told you, I want to do a segment just specifically talking about it. There's a whole bunch of theories that you've shared with me in the past that I think are worth reviewing and analyzing. I think the whole extraterrestrial topic as a whole is fascinating, not only because of talks about possibilities, but inevitably, at least for me, every time we talk about it, it makes you self-reflect. You know what I mean? For what it's worth of, like, yo, you know, how are we doing as a species, dude? Like, are we moving the needle? Are we moving forward? Like, what's the meaning of life? There's a lot of topics and discussions that naturally come to surface.
Question.
Yeah, so definitely I'm looking forward to bringing you in for the next one and just deep diving on it, you know. So any
People
parting?
are really interested in that topic. Yeah, we definitely have to touch it again. Yeah.
Yeah. So any parting words until the next one that we wrap it up? I'll pass it to you, Anthony, first.
Well, I just want to say I had a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting me. You know, probably hopefully we'll definitely have more conversation. You know.
Facts. Xavier, pass it over to you, man. Take us home.
Well, oh man, you're giving me the tall order, but I just like Anthony said, this was super fun. I feel like this was a super great first, introduction into what we're gonna be doing with the future in terms of just kind of setting up the content to come and everything. And I'm just looking forward to really talking shop, man. Really getting into more comic book lore, more deep dives on like narratives and stories that kind of move us and really drive us, and just beyond that, just like recent like movies and shows, and just different forms of media that are both comic book related and maybe even outside of comic books that are just relevant today and stuff that people really want to hear about and talk about. So this was a great first episode, and you know appreciate everybody who tuned in to support, from Instagram Live to YouTube, and just in general, just looking forward to giving y'all more content in the future. So with that being said, I mean, loved every second of it. Hope y'all loved it as much as we did.
Yeah, I mean, you put a button on it. And on that note, I'll put out the outro, and I'll see you guys in the next one.